The following announcement has been paid for by the new Howl Order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So I had an interesting conversation with you guys the other day regarding the GM and the head coach and players being picked by the GM, so forth and so forth. And I talked about why I think it's so important that you get the general manager position correct and how much I think so many people are focused in on the head coaching hire, but not focusing in on the GM search as much, if not more, than the head coaching hire is maybe a mistake for some. I brought up that the GM is responsible for hiring said head coach and picking the groceries, essentially, picking the players and filling out this roster. We've seen how incompetence from a personnel standpoint can impact your football team. We know this. If you're a fan, we know the NFL is a war of attrition every single year. Injuries are going to happen. Circumstances are going to befall in your team. The best teams in the league find ways to circumvent those injuries and circumstances, whatever the case may be. Now, I think there is a case that can be made that the best coaches are the ones that can get the most out of whatever talent they're given. And if you give them championship caliber talent, they're going to get championship caliber results. If you give them less than championship caliber talent, they're still going to get you postseason-like results, and et cetera, so forth and so forth. If you give them injuries, they're not going to give you back excuses. They're just going to find a way to win. Cite Mike Tomlin, right? Again, he hasn't been given championship talent in Pittsburgh, especially at the quarterback position, but he's just found ways to win. Cite Mike Tomlin and Mason Rudolph at the end of this season when all looked lost for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now it brings up the question, and I had a back and forth with a viewer that was a healthy back and forth about the importance of GM versus head coach. And so I wanted to bring this to the floor, right? I wanted to introduce this question to all of you and see what you guys thought. Look, at the end of the day, I think both of these need to be really good and in lockstep with one another. Like when you look at the best organizations, it starts at the top, but everybody is in lockstep. There's no dissension. You don't hear rumors of this person wanting this and this person wanting that. And even if there is a disagreement, because there are going to be disagreements on personnel and what players should fit here best and what this player could bring and what that player could mean, but they should be healthy ones. There should be disagreements where we can come together at the end and agree that, you know what, I may see it this way, you see it that way, but as a group, because those aren't going to be the only two voices that have any weight. You're going to talk to others within the organization, and if more people side with the GM or the head coach, then that's what you end up doing, right? If it's a healthy situation, whatever the case may be. I wanted to ask you guys a simple question, and you can leave your responses down in the comment section. I can't wait to read because we're getting to the point of the season now where it's less about facts, right? Less about the tangible stuff that we can touch, see, feel, right? More about opinions. Everything's going to be subjective and everything's going to be opinionated from this point on because there are no facts. After the last game of the regular season takes place, all you have is postseason ball. If your team isn't in it, ours isn't. Now everything is left to your imagination. Now you get to talk about the GMs and the head coaches and the quarterbacks coming into the draft and the defensive ends and the tackles and which one does this team need more, what you would do. Everything is going to be opinionated now and opinion based, right? Everything will be dealt in subjectivity at this point. Hence the question. And this is just a preference thing. Again, both of these are important. The question is it equally important to you? Or does one supplant the other as being the most important? So I ask you the question, which one matters the most in terms of team success to you? The GM, the general manager, or the head coach? Which one impacts the overall product the most? My argument was that you can have a really good head coach, but if your GM stinks, you limit what the coach is able to produce. Essentially, I'm saying that a bad GM bottlenecks a really good head coach. It hamstrings that head coach. It limits how effective he can be. Whereas a really good GM provides a head coach with whatever tools he needs, and now it's up to that coach to get the most out of the product that the GM has provided the head coach with, right? And you could say, well, coaching matters, and we've seen that firsthand this season. I won't let anyone convince me that this team sucks and doesn't have any talent. I'm not going to just sit here and stand for the fact that this team doesn't have any talent. Because before this season, and a lot of you have done a complete 180, and that's fine, because this team does suck right now, and we are the worst team in football. Literally, we are on a 7-game losing streak, and we'll look at that in a second. No one is even remotely close to us. We've got the longest losing streak in the league right now. So no one's debating that this team is awful. And a lot of the losses of the 7 in a row have been pure ass whoopings. 2 or more score ass whoopings. I get it. But before this season started, most of us, I'm included, so I'm going to say us, most of us felt like this was the most talented team we have seen in Washington since ... And you can fill in those dots, right? You can fill in that blank. Some of you said 2016, some of you said 2012, whatever. This was the most talented team we had seen in Washington in quite some time. We can just leave it at that. And you can say what you want. You can pick and prod at this roster and what they didn't do on the offensive line. That doesn't change the fact that we thought we were loaded at receiver. We thought we had a really good stable of running backs. We're excited about Chris Rodriguez. We knew we were excited about Antonio Gibson supposedly in this system. And, of course, Brian Robinson Jr. and what he had done in his rookie season. We were really excited to see what year 2 looked like for him. I was excited about quarterback, clearly, and Jacoby Brissett being behind him so that if Sam was playing well and got injured or something like that happened, we felt really confident that the backup could step in and play really well. It was the best quarterback situation that I thought we had had in quite some time here in Washington. You look at the defense, we were loaded on the defensive line. We got Chase Young coming back. Oh, yeah, right? Montez Sweat heading into a contract year. We were hoping that he would have that monumental leap, and it turns out he did. Technically, if you combine the sacks he had here and the sacks he's had in Chicago and you put them together, we're talking about a double-digit sack season, the first of his career. So technically speaking, he did have that Daron Payne leap that we were all hoping and assuming that he would have in a contract season, right? So you got Payne, Allen, of course, inside. Payne coming off of a career year. Allen, you've got the 2 edge rushers. You feel good about their backups. Fadarian Mathis is finally going to play, right? We really like what we got out of John Ridgeway. So I could go through this whole song and dance with you. We were so excited about the secondary. That turned out to be a big mistake, right? But I was always adamant we needed a nickel corner. They didn't draft one. Instead, they drafted Quan Martin, and he was supposed to solve those issues for them. Clearly, that didn't happen. I will tell you, though, quietly, and I've been feeling this way for the last 3 weeks or so, probably since the Dolphins game, even though there wasn't a lot to be excited about in that game. Quan Martin quietly has been playing really good football here of late, right? In all of this wreckage, it's hard to sort through the wreckage and find a positive because everything's been destroyed. So when you're looking around, you're trying to find the positive. I've been telling anybody that listen, Sam Cosmi has been a glowing positive this season. Despite what you may or may not have seen, Sam Cosmi has been excellent. Quan Martin is starting to work his way into that, hey, maybe he's not that bad, right? Still doesn't, to me, warrant the selection when they made it with what this team needed and what they were expecting from him. It still doesn't add up, right? The math ain't mathing. However, he may turn out to be a really good football player for the next regime moving forward. We'll see, but this team had talent. That's the long story. That's the long version of what I was getting around to is this team had talent going into the season. Not Super Bowl talent, far from it, but enough talent to win 9 games, be at 9 games, in terms of wins right now, be competing for a playoff spot. Hell, to be at 8, the 7th seed in the NFC right now. And we talked about this before the season started, that there's nothing in the NFC past Philadelphia, Dallas, Detroit, and San Francisco. And some of us, me, I'm going to be brutally honest, I wasn't sold on Detroit going into the season. I thought they were going to do the Lions thing when everybody gets on board and they were going to flop. So I wasn't thinking that Detroit was going to be what they turned out to be. I was just looking at San Francisco, Dallas, and Philadelphia and saying, after those 4 teams, and maybe, Minnesota was good the year before. I didn't think they were going to be good this year, but there was probably going to be another team to step into the void left by Minnesota, and that team turned out to be Detroit in that same division. But outside of those 4 teams, we said the rest of the NFC stinks, and it held up. It's true. And so 8 wins right now, being 8-8 right now, puts you squarely in the NFC playoff conversation. We couldn't even do that. With the talent that we had going into the season, not that we have now, clearly it's a different roster, but the talent we had going into the season, you should have been able to win 8 games this year. Playing the Giants twice, the Bears before they had even won a game. It's a different Bears team we're talking about now. We caught the Bears when they were lifeless, winless, and on the verge of firing their coach who hadn't won a game in almost 2 years. Or 2 years, almost a full year, right? The Bears had lost like 15 straight games or something like that, dating back to the year prior. And we let them come into our house and stomp a mud hole in us. We should have been at 8 wins at least right now. But coaching is what stopped this team from getting to 8 wins. And whether you want to blame Jack Del Rio and Brent Wieselmeyer, who are no longer here, who were relieved of their duties after the Thanksgiving beatdown from Dallas, whether you want to blame Ronald Rivera and company for putting this roster together and picking the coaches that were here, picking the players for the most part that are here, whether you want to blame Eric Bieniemy, the offensive struggles at times and his, wonky way of calling plays, whatever the case may be, we can all admit that watching this team struggle this year and the lack of coaching that took place has put this team in the position that they're in. And so it does give you pause when you start to think about the equation and where does coaching kind of fit in. Because this is not a 4-win team. Before this season started, we didn't look at this roster and say, hey, this is a 4-win football team. And if you are going to sit here with a straight face and say, yeah, I thought this was a 4-win roster before the season started, I'm going to call your bluff. I don't believe you. You need more people. Okay? Nobody thought, you might have thought this was a Rivera roster, 7-10. You might have said, hey, Rivera's going to end up getting fired, and so this team's going to, not play as well, and so it's a 6-win roster, maybe 5. We're not even going to make it to 5, guys. This is a 4-win roster right now. But is it really? I mean, now it is, of course. you know. But I still believe in Terry McLaurin. I still believe in Jahan Dotson. I still believe in Curtis Samuel. I still believe in Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson Jr. That hasn't changed. The offensive line has actually gotten better, right? The quarterback position has gotten extremely worse, right? But the bottom line is, before everything bottomed out, before they traded Montez Sweat, before they traded Chase Young, before the quarterback position lost its confidence, or Sam Howell rather lost his confidence, before this thing started to go to hell in a handbasket, this team had talent. This team had a chance. And it wasn't coached well enough. So I ask you once again, what's more important? The general manager or the head coach? Both need to be really good. I'm aware of this, okay? I'm not asking you to choose one or the other and like you can't have both. We want both of them to be great hires and be in lockstep. That to me is also a huge part of that equation, is that they have to be on the same page. I would like two guys that know each other very well, who respect each other, who can have a great working relationship to be hired, for there to be synchronicity there. The last thing I want is to have a situation where there's backstabbing and people going behind others' backs, as we've seen in other organizations, trying to get the upper hand and having self-preservation take place like we saw in Carolina earlier this season. Or like we've seen in other places like Tennessee, where the head coach Mike Vrabel literally got the GM fired in season. Like, I don't want to see that happen here. We want what we've seen in Baltimore, what we've seen in San Francisco. Like, that's the kind of organizational strength that you're looking for. But which one is most important to you? The head coach or the general manager? Leave it down in the comment section. In other news, Washington made a bevy of, transactions with their practice squad. Who cares? Okay? No one cares. I don't. If you do, bless your heart. I don't care. Here's what I do care about. Here's what you care about. The Tankathon. All right, so let's talk about it. So Washington has now risen to the number 2 overall pick. The Panthers have solidified the number 1 overall pick, being that pick belongs to Chicago due to the trade last year for the number 1 overall pick that allowed the Panthers to go up and get Bryce Young. The Bears own the number 1 overall pick, and that can't be debated. That is already a fact, and it's clinched. Okay, so Washington can get no higher than 2, which we already knew. We talked about this for weeks now, that Washington couldn't get any higher than 2. I said that I don't see them falling any further than 8, which you can see now. Atlanta is at 7 and 9. The Jets are now at 6 and 10. And so they can't fall any further than 7. Okay, 7. And I think I might have said 7. I know I said they couldn't get to 9. I think 8 was as far as they could go. But that's when the Jets were a 5-win team. And the Jets beat us because I thought we were going to beat the Jets and they would stay at 5 wins. The Jets are now at 6 wins. We can't get to 6, so we can go no further down than 7 with a win over Dallas in Week 18. Dallas is playing for the division, so I expect the Cowboys to come in and throttle us. Meanwhile, a loss would keep us in contention for the number 2 overall pick, but as you can see, it's a 3-way tie. Now, Arizona, I've already told you, we just needed to get even with them. Even, and they're leaving us because their strength of schedule, their division is just really good. With San Francisco, Arizona, the Rams, who are resurgent all of a sudden, and Seattle, they've got a really good schedule. And then the teams that they've played on their schedule, the NFC East, most notably, Philadelphia, Dallas, all of that good stuff, that's made their schedule really, really strong, right? So not really too concerned with Arizona. New England was the one that I was worried about, but I've already told you that I expect New England to beat the Jets in week 18. This was my thought all along. Like, Arizona was the one I was worried about. I didn't think they would win another game. I thought they needed to beat Chicago the week before. They didn't, and I didn't think they would win another game. They went to Philadelphia, upset the Eagles, which did us a huge solid because it forced now, the Eagles and the Cowboys to both need that final game of the season. Dallas can win the division with just beating Washington. They don't need any help. Whereas if the Eagles had won, they would have needed help, the Giants, to beat the Eagles, and then they would have had to beat Washington. It's kind of the similar situation that they were in last year, and Dallas knew that the Eagles weren't going to lose to the Giants. Hence, they came into Washington kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and they ended up getting throttled. That's not the case this year. They've got everything on the line. They're going to play their starters. I expect them to come in here and show no mercy on some Cobra Kai shit. In any event, as you can see, Washington's streak is the largest in the league in terms of losses in a row, 7. The next closest team has 4 consecutive losses. We are a shit show, which takes me to my next point. 6 days and counting on the Rivera watch, okay, on the countdown to new beginnings. 6 days and counting. We're almost there. As I said on Sunday, one more lap around the track. Okay, this is the last week. You're on that last lap of that mile you're running for PE class in the 9th grade. All you got to do is get it around the track one more time. We're almost there. Okay, don't think about how tired you are. Just think about the finish line. It's a mental thing now. We're almost there. Okay, but looking at this, I like our chances a lot to get the number 2 overall seed because, as I've mentioned, I think New England's going to win. They were hyper competitive in week 17 on the road at Buffalo. They're going to be playing the Jets, a team that they absolutely own. And I see them winning that game and getting to 5-12 on the season and leaving Washington to rot at 4-13 with the number 2 overall pick. If they should lose that game to the Jets, which is very possible, JP Finley had a tweet today that said the game that may ultimately decide what happens between the two teams from a strength of schedule standpoint is a game with the Saints and the Falcons. So, long story short, New England played the Saints this year. Washington played the Falcons this year. Washington beat the Falcons. The Saints beat the Patriots. Should the Falcons beat the Saints, obviously that forces Washington's strength of schedule to go up and New England's to go down because, again, the Saints are on the Patriots' schedule, not ours, and the Falcons are on our schedule, not theirs. So a win for a team on our schedule and a loss for a team on their schedule doesn't help our case, clearly. Vice versa, should the Falcons lose that game and the Saints go on to win that game, strength of schedule for Washington goes down because the Falcons are on our schedule. Strength of schedule goes up for the Patriots. So again, we'll see how this goes. But needless to say, the first team you should be rooting for this week is New England, obviously. I don't have to explain to you why. But apparently the next team you should be rooting for, in the 1 o'clock hour, that is, because we'll know, right? We'll know what needs to be done. We already know we need to lose, but we'll know if it's a big deal or not, right? Still, Arizona is sitting there with 4 wins. We don't want to win and allow the Cardinals to get back in front of us. So losing is paramount, first and foremost. But we'll know if the Patriots took care of business or not in the 1 o'clock hour. We play at 4:25 on Sunday. So we'll know if, hey, we got this thing sewn up, we just got to lose, or if we're going to have to play the numbers game and just losing And then we got to wait and see, right? The other team you should be rooting for in the 1 o'clock hour, just in case as a failsafe, should be the New Orleans Saints. Hey, beat Atlanta. Let's not leave it to chance. So those are the two teams you should be rooting for at 1 o'clock on Sunday. And then, of course, this may make you vomit. And I would phrase it as not rooting for Dallas, but rooting against Washington. You can just say it like that if that makes you more comfortable. Either way, you need Washington to lose. It sucks that the team delivering the loss is one that you can't stand and you would prefer Washington to beat. But in this particular case, you can sacrifice one time to not have to do this again for at least the next 5 to 10 years, you're hoping. So that's what it is. We got a gift on New Year's Eve from the Arizona Cardinals. Not only did they knock the Philadelphia Eagles down a peg to the point where that fan base is on edge and they're calling for their head coach who just took them to the Super Bowl a year ago. They're calling for his head. People are asking, has Nick Sirianni lost the locker room? I asked you guys, and I said this about 8 weeks ago. I want to see what happens. And anybody who's been watching the NFC East Super Friends, you know I've said this multiple times, and I was swatted away like they were Dikembe Mutombo, and I was some weak shooting guard coming into the lane with a garbage-ass floater, told to get out of here. Not today. I was not deterred, though, and I kept asking the question, how will these Eagles face adversity? Because really, since Nick Sirianni has gotten there, other than them struggling when he first got there, and then him changing the way they run their offense to more of a run-dominant offense behind Jalen Hurts' skill set at that time, other than that, they haven't had any real adversity. I said, I think this is a fragile-minded team. I think they've lost a lot of talent. I think the coaching staff is worse than it was a season ago. They're not the same team. And I want to see what happens when adversity hits. Well, adversity has hit, and they have not handled it well at all. Not as a team, not as a staff, not as players, and damn sure not as a fan base. It is ugly, and it is fun to watch. But even bigger out of that loss was the fact that the Arizona Cardinals got their 4th win of the season and put Washington in the driver's seat. Literally, the Arizona Cardinals said, here are the keys. Take care of the number 2 overall draft pick whip. All right, I'm leaving them in your hands. Don't F this up. And they dropped the keys in our hand. And we looked down at the keys and we went, Arizona, you shouldn't have. Thank you, Arizona. Thank you. Thank you. We won't let you down. Now, we just have to not let Arizona down. Do what you are supposed to do, what you have done better than anybody else over the last 2 months. Lose. One final time for Rivera. Get his ass out of here with an exclamation point. And let's ride off into the offseason knowing that the future is bright and we have a chance to turn this thing around and turn it around for good. We got new ownership. We're going to have a new general manager. We're going to have a new front office structure. Probably going to have a team president next year. GM, head coach, so forth and so forth. We're going to have a brand new quarterback. They're going to refortify this offensive line. And they're going to have to refortify the defensive end position. There's so much that has to be done this offseason. But it starts at the top. Let's get it done. 6 more days until this car wreck of an administration is over. We can allow them to move on. We can part ways. And we can start the future. The future in 6 days will be now. And it'll be bright. As bright as it's been here in quite some time. But the first order of business, you cannot skip steps. If you want to do things the right way, you can't skip steps. is to make sure that we solidify the number 2 overall pick. I know you guys got to see Michael Penix Jr. last night, and we're going to talk about him and these quarterbacks, but him in particular on Thursday night show. We're back to Thursdays live now for the Washington shows, and this will be the last week of the Command Post. We will have, I think, one show on Monday to kind of wrap everything up, and then we'll be done. And hopefully that will be the Rivera firing and everybody else for that matter. And then we will then be into the Command Post territory, right? So we're getting close. It's season's end. We start to transition away from, Commanders News Nightly or Command News Nightly to the Command Post, or Commanders News Nightly to Command Post. So we're transitioning here shortly, but I hate that number in the far right column. I hate it with a passion. That's not what I stand for. But damn it, you've come this far. Finish the job. Finish the job. New England's going to do their part. They're going to win on Sunday. Belichick's going to go out with a bang. If he's going out, he's going to go out with a win. Not with a whimper like our guy. I'm not worried about New England. Arizona's already done what they needed to do. Everything's taken care of. Now we just got to finish the job. What's stopping us? Ronald has said he's going to name a quarterback. If Jacoby's healthy, they're going to start him in Week 18. Let's hope that Jacoby isn't healthy and they decide to go to Jake Fromm. If nothing else, that'll ensure that we lose that game. I mean, not that Sam's any better right now. I mean, just if you really want to make sure we lose, either Sam starts or Jake Fromm starts. Jacoby Brissett, he'd give you a shot against Dallas. It's not like last week against San Francisco where I didn't think he had a shot in hell no matter what. He's got a shot against Dallas. I don't want to see it. I'm good. Again, I'm not trying to leave it to chance. But anyway, I digress. We have a chance. That's all we could ask for. And we're in the position to do what needs to be done. So let's get it done. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the latest installment, 6 days and counting, of Commanders Nightly News. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys again tomorrow. We will go over the poll question on Thursday night's live show, and we will have a conversation around the quarterbacks coming into the draft, and we'll have a conversation about Michael Penix Jr. and his performance. I'm going to have a conversation about that on this channel prior to that, but we'll probably piggyback off of that conversation and talk about what we saw from him and where he is in the pantheon of quarterbacks that are coming out. And he's added a wrinkle, has Michael Penix Jr. And, for those of us who were paying attention, most of the year and throughout his career, we knew that this guy was talented. There are other questions about Michael Penix Jr. He's a complicated evaluation. I'll just say that. But that's what this part of the year is about having these types of conversations. And man, as excited as I am to get to the offseason and the future and what lies ahead for Washington, man, I hate this time of the year because of all of the scuttlebutt that'll be going back and forth, and everything will be opinion based, and obviously there's no exact science to any of this, and then there'll be a lot of crazy things being said. There've already been crazy things. People already speculating what this front office is going to do, and the people that are going to be running the show aren't even here yet, which we went over this last week, which is just crazy. Anybody that's speculating what Washington is going to do is literally trying to clickbait you, because there is nothing right now that you have from an empirical evidence or data standpoint, because the people that are going to be making those decisions aren't even here yet. And you don't even know who they are There's no way you can try to say, well, Washington's going to go up and get Caleb. You can guess. You can have a hypothesis. But people speaking as if they have some sort of insider information. What? But that's where we're going. And I always tell you, when we get to draft season, you know it. You know the saying. Anyway, 6 more days. You guys have a good one. I gave you a question. Leave it down in the comment section. Head coach or the GM? Which one's more important? See you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35.